Let's go with Kevin Adams. Says, hi Ave, I would like you to review on my latest project, The High Priest. Last time I had to work on my UVs and promised you to work on them, so I went for UDEMs. First time, how can I maximize my chance to find a job based on what I can do? And should I learn to do stylized characters? I have a section for the animation too. Let's take a look. Nice, nice. Yes, I remember your portfolio from a couple of months ago. Yeah, okay, we got some animation. I'll take a look at that in just a second. So this one, you want me to take a look at this. High Priestess Mokayuna. Concept art by Tooth Wu. Okay. Interesting. So, yeah. I feel, my friend, that I'm gonna be honest, when I saw the concept, I thought it was a mecha. That was my initial impression from like the thumbnail, that it was like a robot mecha. Now that I see the concept, I see that it's actually a female character and she's like wearing a lot of bones and leather. I feel like you're missing a big point here on the material definition of your elements. And I'm gonna explain why. So let's go here to Krita. So unfortunately, when I see this, from a silhouette perspective and from a material definition perspective, this does not read as bone at first glance. Like it's complicated. I actually didn't notice that the character was there. I thought the eyes were like there's a skull over here. So if we look at the concept, you're gonna see that the bone has a lot more silhouette variation. So there's more things sort of like poking out, okay, and generating a more interesting look, like a more interesting silhouette. That's important. Silhouette, guys, I've mentioned this before. We mentioned this so much on the anatomy course and on the Oni course and all of the courses. Silhouette is so important for the description of a character. So if we are not pushing things like far enough to really see the proper silhouette of things, it's going to be very difficult to appreciate everything that's going on. I'm not sure what you're doing. Let me see if you have some like breakdowns here. Yeah, okay, so the high poly sculpt, yeah, even the high poly sculpt, is this a high poly sculpt or is that just like a normal map? Because I feel like the high poly sculpt is very, yes, it's very smooth. So it's coming from this area right here. Like when you transfer these detail from like the arms and the bones into the low poly, I feel like you missed or you oversimplified too much certain areas, and then you added too much loops on other areas like this streams and all that stuff. That's baked down. We don't need to include that. But then the horns are missing a lot of that detail. Okay, so those little spikes right there that we see on this area, hopefully you can see them. Oh. That one. It's important that we include it because right now I'm not reading that on the final piece. It just looks like very smooth. Same thing for all of these details. There's like heavier details that I would expect to see here on the bones to really push them in and generate something that looks a little bit more interesting. Okay, so if we start changing that silhouette right there and play with a little bit of the volumes, this should look a little bit more interesting. Then in material definition, that's another one, and you can see it right here. In material definition, there's no variation. I don't see a variation on the material of the character. Like everything looks glossy. Like the bones right here, they look glossy. They look glossy here. The metal looks glossy. The bones, the skin looks glossy. The leather looks glossy. So to me, everything looks the same. You did change the reflectivity color, but I don't see any change on the roughness map information. Okay. I'm not sure if you've checked the substance scores that I have, but in that one, we go very heavily into that like exploration of differences in roughness. Because again, if we take a look at the leather, for instance, on her abdomen, that doesn't read like leather to me. That reads like plastic. And on the concept, it's very obviously leather. So it's very important that we do that. There's things here that are not blending the way they should. Again, it's a complicated concept. I'm gonna be honest. I personally don't love this concept because it's very noisy, but you were able to capture a lot of that information, but it's just a tricky concept to work with. There's pieces that are missing as well, and I'm being harsh. I know I'm being like very like precise about this whole thing, but look at the bandages here. Those bandages, they don't have enough depth, so you either do the depth in the high poly and bake it down, or push the textures so that we can really see how each bandage sort of like lives on top of the other one, right? because otherwise it gets lost on all of the information that we have. It's a tricky one. Again, it's a very ambitious concept. I'm not sure how long it took you, but if you did this in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that's quite impressive. There we go. Start date 4/12/2024. 10/1. So 1 month. 1 month and 5 weeks for this whole character. It's definitely tricky because of all the different things that she has. I wouldn't say it's a complete, like, it's not a failure or anything. It shows that you know the process. It's just that I don't particularly love some of the assets that we have. This render right here looks a little bit nicer because it's a clay render, but then the material definition, I think texturing, the texturing aspect of things really hurt you. UDIMs, you manage them perfectly. This is great. This is a perfect way to manage UDIMs. That works perfectly fine. It's of course a lot of UDIMs, but it works. No soy Lotus, thanks for the resub, man. ¿Cómo estás? Bienvenido. Let's see. I'm not sure if I can do that, Peter, like a Pixar or Disney style character, because I don't do that kind of stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. Any tips to land a job at an international company, like applying for a job in another country? My last 4 got rejected, lol, even though having 6 years of it. Unfortunately, it's tricky right now. Like, I'm not sure if you guys have been following the news, but international conflicts are really, really intense. Like, even here in Mexico, the way the U.S. has been like taking some decisions has been very, very bad this last couple of weeks. So things are very, very tricky in an international thing. Most studios will try to hire locally before jumping into getting people from overseas.